The woman in the gold dress stopped Kang Dae-won's heart. Crystal chandeliers threw light across the Meridian's ballroom, bouncing off diamonds that cost more than houses, reflecting in champagne flutes held by men who owned cities. Power players circled like sharks. Dae-won moved through them with practiced ease, a predator among predators. He'd built his empire on one unbreakable rule: never let desire override control. And part of that control meant boundaries. Clear ones? I don't date black women. The thought had become muscle memory. Protection against repeating his father's fatal mistake. Then she turned. Gold fabric clung to curves that defied every Hollywood standard, catching light like liquid fire. Dark skin gleamed. Braids fell past her shoulders in intricate patterns that must have taken hours. She commanded the space around her like it was hers by right, not invitation. But her eyes. God, her eyes. They locked onto his across 50 feet of marble floor, and recognition hit him like a fist to the chest. Not the casual acknowledgement of strangers, but something deeper. Something that saw past the tailored suit and careful control straight into the parts of himself he kept buried. Before we start, make sure to hit like and subscribe, and really I'm curious, where are you watching from? Drop your country name in the comments. I love seeing how far our stories travel. Herbert Castellanos' voice boomed through the sound system. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce my special consultant for this evening. Ms. Nephelle Morrison, one of the country's finest financial forensic analysts. She'll be vetting all potential buyers to ensure the Meridian's legacy continues with honor. Ice flooded Dae-won's veins. Financial forensic analyst. The gatekeeper between him and the $2 billion prize every criminal organization in North America wanted. The woman who could unravel 20 years of carefully constructed legitimacy with a few keystrokes. Nephelle smiled at him from across the room. Not friendly. Not seductive. Knowing. Could she already see through everything he'd built? And if someone this dangerous was looking at him like that, like she'd been waiting for this exact moment, what secrets had she already uncovered? Nephelle's pulse hammered against her ribs. 20 years. She'd spent 20 years following the ghost of this man from a distance, piecing together his rise from her mother's deathbed confessions. Valencia Wright had destroyed his father, sent dozens to prison, and died with Kang Dae-won's name on her lips alongside apologies Nephelle never fully understood. Professional distance had been the plan. Vet his finances. Deliver her findings. Walk away clean. Except her hands were shaking. The son looked nothing like the grainy surveillance photos from 2 decades ago. That angry 18-year-old had transformed into something carved from ice and ambition. Controlled. Dangerous. Exactly what her mother had described in those final morphine-hazed moments. He'll build it back, Valencia had whispered. The son always does. And he'll hate me for it. Nephelle had prepared for everything. The financial records. The shell companies. The careful dance between legitimate business and criminal enterprise. She hadn't prepared for the way electricity shot through her when their eyes met. Recognition moving both directions across that ballroom like a current with nowhere to ground. This was supposed to be business. Just business. Her mother had stood in rooms like this once, worn a wire, smiled at men she'd eventually destroy. Now Nephelle stood where Valencia had, facing the legacy of that destruction. History had a terrible sense of humor. The numbers didn't make sense. Nephelle pulled up Dae-won's financial records in the private vetting suite Castellanos had provided. Shell corporations layered like Russian dolls, offshore accounts in the Caymans, real estate holdings that generated impossible returns. Standard criminal operation stuff. She'd seen it 100 times. Then she found the accounts that made her stomach turn. Human trafficking. Forced labor. Transaction codes that screamed exploitation of the worst kind. Children. Her hands froze on the keyboard. No. Dae-won ran money laundering operations, illegal gambling, probably moved weapons. But his organization had a reputation, twisted as it sounded, for certain lines they didn't cross. Everyone in the intelligence community knew it. He'd killed men who tried to bring that kind of business into his territory. This didn't fit. Nephelle ran the forensic analysis 3 times. Same result. The digital signatures were perfect. Too perfect. The kind of perfect that came from someone who knew exactly how to forge them. She pulled up the metadata, traced the account creation timestamps, cross-referenced the transaction patterns against known criminal databases. There. Renzo Calabria's digital fingerprints all over the fabricated evidence. Someone wanted Dae-won destroyed tonight. Wanted him to fail Castellanos' vetting, lose the Meridian, and face prosecution for crimes that would make him a target in every prison in America. The evidence had been planted with surgical precision. Nephelle found Dae-won near the west windows, nursing whiskey like it might contain answers. Mr. Kang. Her voice cut through the background noise of string quartets and false laughter. He turned, and she watched his expressions cycle through confusion, attraction, and carefully controlled wariness in under 3 seconds. Impressive. I don't believe we've been introduced. His accent carried soul underneath Los Angeles, smooth as the whiskey in his glass. We haven't. She moved closer, close enough to smell his cologne, something expensive and understated. But I know who you are. What you are. And more importantly, what someone's trying to make you appear to be. His jaw tightened. You're the analyst. Nephelle Morrison. She extended her hand. He took it. The contact lasted a half-second too long, her dark fingers against his lighter skin, heat transferring between them like a warning. Or a promise. You seem very confident in your assessment, Ms. Morrison. I'm very good at my job. Are you? Good enough to know when someone's being set up. She leaned in, dropping her voice to a whisper that made him lean closer too. Good enough to recognize Calabria's work when I see it. Dae-won's eyes went cold. Killer cold. The kind of cold that had built an empire from ruins. We need to talk, Nephelle continued. Privately. Your empire depends on it. The private office Nephelle led him to was all mahogany and leather, insulated from the gala's noise. Dae-won stood by the door, blocking her exit. Start talking. My mother was Valencia Wright. The words detonated between them like a grenade. His face went white, then red, then something beyond color. Pure rage surfacing through 20 years of practiced control. His hands clenched into fists. Every muscle in his body coiled like he might strike. Your mother. The words came out strangled. Poisonous. Destroyed your father. I know. Nephelle kept her voice steady even as her heart tried to break through her ribs. I know what she did. I know what it cost you. And I know that right now, someone is using that history to destroy you the same way. She pulled up her tablet, turned it toward him. These accounts in your name? The trafficking, the exploitation? They're fabricated. Digital forgeries created in the last 72 hours. Calabria's team did it. They knew Castellanos hired me. Knew my background. Probably figured the daughter of the woman who destroyed your father would be happy to finish the job. Dae-won stared at the evidence, his breathing harsh in the quiet room. Through the office's glass wall, she could see Renzo Calabria across the ballroom, watching them with a smile that promised violence. Why are you telling me this? Dae-won's voice came out raw. Because you have a choice. Nephelle met his eyes. Trust me, the daughter of your enemy, or lose everything. I present my findings to Castellanos in 2 hours. What I say determines whether you walk out of here with the Meridian or in handcuffs. Dae-won's fingers flew across the keyboard, tracing digital shadows through offshore servers. There. Nephelle pointed at the screen, her shoulder pressed against his. That timestamp. 3 days ago, 2:47 a.m. Eastern. Someone accessed your accounts from a location in Brooklyn. Calabria's territory. Exactly. She pulled up another window. And looked at the authorization codes. They're perfect copies of your signature, but the encryption key is off by 0.03 seconds. Amateur mistake for professional work. Dae-won watched her work, grudging respect replacing suspicion. She moved through financial systems like he moved through dangerous rooms, confident, precise, deadly. Why are you helping me? The question came out quieter than he intended. Nephelle's hands stilled on the keyboard. Because my mother spent her last breath regretting what she did to your father. Maybe this balances the scales. Her hand covered his to stop his typing. Electricity shot between them. Neither pulled away. The office door burst open. 3 men in expensive suits filled the doorway, Calabria's crew written all over their faces. The one in front had a gun poorly concealed under his jacket. Dae-won moved before Nephelle could process the threat. He stepped between her and the men, his whole body language shifting from businessman to predator in half a heartbeat. Gentlemen. His voice dropped to something cold and lethal. You're interrupting. Boss wants to know what you're doing with the analyst. The lead man's hand drifted toward his weapon. What happened next took 6 seconds. Dae-won crossed the distance, disarmed the first man, and had all 3 on the ground before Nephelle's brain caught up with her eyes. No guns fired. No bones broken. Just controlled, efficient violence that left them gasping on expensive carpet. He turned back to her, blood on his knuckles, truth in his eyes. I'm not a good man, Nephelle. His voice carried 20 years of choices. But I'm not the monster Calabria's trying to paint. The ballroom went silent when Nephelle walked to the microphone. Castellanos sat at the head table, flanked by men whose combined wealth could buy small countries. Calabria lounged 3 seats down, that poisonous smile still on his face. I've completed my analysis. Nephelle's voice carried across marble and crystal. Mr. Kang's financial records show sophisticated money laundering operations, yes. But the trafficking charges? Fabricated. Digital forgeries created 72 hours ago from an IP address in Brooklyn. She pulled up the evidence on the massive screens flanking the stage. Calabria's smile died. Someone tried to frame Mr. Kang. Nephelle met Calabria's eyes across the room. Someone who got sloppy. Castellanos stood, his decision written on his face. The Meridian goes to Kang Dae-won. Calabria erupted from his seat, face purple with rage. Security moved in, but his voice cut through the chaos as they escorted him out. Enjoy your victory. And your woman. You'll both be dead within the month. The rooftop air hit them like freedom. Las Vegas sprawled below, a universe of lights pretending to be stars. Nephelle stood at the railing, gold dress catching the wind. I built my whole life on one rule. Dae-won's voice came from behind her. Never repeat my father's mistake. Never let emotion override control. And now I'm realizing my father's mistake wasn't loving your mother. He turned her to face him. It was not trusting her with the truth. Nephelle touched his face. I came here to understand you. Maybe forgive. I didn't expect. He kissed her. Soft, then desperate, then inevitable. This is insane, she whispered against his mouth. I know. She was her mother's daughter. He was his father's son. And they were about to rewrite the ending. 3 months later, Nephelle walked into the Meridian wearing gold. Calabria's organization had collapsed 2 weeks after the gala. Details remained vague, the way Dae-won's business always did. She was official now. Consultant. Legitimate success. His empire ran cleaner with her watching, though clean was relative. Dae-won met her at the entrance, his hand finding the small of her back like it belonged there. I used to think I didn't date black women, he murmured against her ear. Turns out I was just waiting for the right one. The gold dress that started everything hung in their shared closet now, a reminder that the most dangerous thing in the world isn't a man's empire. It's a woman who sees past it to the truth underneath. If this story moved you, subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss the stories that inspire. Drop your thoughts in the comments and inspire others with your perspective. Sometimes the most powerful connections come from the most impossible places.